Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. Welcome down the Nook. It's Sunday, so we're going to look at a couple of samples. I've got two here from Jesse over at Dribs and Drams on YouTube. Check Jesse out. He's got a really unique take, very upfront, very how he sees it. Really appreciate hearing his thoughts, and he sent a couple of samples my way from Quebec. As you may know, I'm trying to do some Canadian whiskey heading up to our Canada Day. And so I've got two samples that he sent. This was the Rosemont whiskey from Montreal. And then there was a single malt from Mason. I think it was just the Single Malt Sivo, something like that. So I'll talk about these samples. If you have any Canadian whiskey, why not pour a little bit and sip along. 3, 4. Well, thanks for staying with me through the opener. As I said, these samples came from Jesse. Thank you so much, Jesse, over at Dribs and Drams. Great channel. Check them out. The first one I'm going to try here is this Rosemont Whiskey de Montreal. I really couldn't find a lot about it online. I did find that this is almost a classic Canadian blend. You know, corn, wheat, and barley. And I would say the classic blend would have been corn, rye, and barley. So they've got wheat instead of rye. I also found a site that talked about that it was aged in oak from Quebec, like so Canadian oak. Didn't say, I couldn't find, you know, how it was charred or toasted or whether it was new oak. I couldn't find any of that, but I did find that it was from Quebec, and it's 42%. Let's see what this whiskey tells us. You know, a little bit of a typical Canadian nose in that it's sweet, perks a little on the edges. I would say this one almost is a little bit floral though. It's got an edge of sugary sweetness, a little bit of floral note. Fairly gentle. You know, when I really dug around in there, I got a little bit of an alcoholic note, but it's probably young. Probably, you know, the day after turned 3 years, but good for them. Small distillery. Let's see what the whiskey tastes. Cheers. Very classic whiskey Canadian profile. It's clean, it's sweet, it's sugary a little bit, so maple syrup sweetness. For me, a fair amount of caramel, a little bit of vanilla, but more caramel, more candy, and a little bit of wood spicing. It must be that oak, that Quebec oak, giving it a little bit of spice because there's no rye in it. So we're not getting it from a grain spiciness, but it's got a bit of structure to it. One more sip. It's good. It's clean. It really reminds me, funny, or that's over in the east in Quebec, but I would say, I think the model's done, but the most direct comparison for me would be Rupert's out of Eau Claire in near Calgary, kind of southern Alberta. It reminds me a ton of that. In fact, I don't know if I could tell them apart in a blind. Very interesting. Okay, let's talk this Canadian single malt. Whoa! Also from Jesse. This one is, I think Mason Sivo. I don't know how to say the name. I apologize. And I did actually try to watch a video, but it was entirely in French. And I'm a poor Canadian. I can probably read the back of a cereal box, but I really need to learn my other national language. But it is a single malt. And it is aged in, I think it did say fresh oak or new oak. And then it's finished in Sauternes casks. Was that it? So it's finished in a wine cask. So it's got some regular oak and then some wine cask finish. But it is their own barley. Like the video definitely showed them their farm and whatnot. Like so, it's their own barley. It's Quebec barley, grown there, milled, ground, and fermented, and then distilled into this liquid. Now it's quite a bit darker even than the other one, and it's so dark considering that it's young. I fear that there's some coloring in here, but then it had some wine cask, so we'll see what it is. On the nose. Ah, that's a nice nose. I would definitely say, you know, it's got like a rich spicing, a little bit of Christmas spicing, and the edges of some deeper fruit. Oh. And a little bit of graininess, like like a young barley. Makes sense. In comparison, this becomes very much about sugar, caramel, maple sugar, whereas this gives me some more spicing. Yeah, and it's now really moving into that really almost grainy, malty nature that I get with some very young single malts. Kind of reminds me of that barley batch by Canada Club. I mean, that's not a craft distiller by any means, but they threw a bunch of barley in their regular mix, and it came out to me very grain husk heavy. And I'm definitely getting that in this single malt. Let's see how it tastes. Cheers. Oh, it's a nice mouthfeel. Oh, I should say it's also 42%. Yeah. Oh, just edges of some huskier casking or dustier wood. It's pretty cool. It's got to be that ex-wine cask. It's playing in here with a little bit of thick red fruit or dark fruit. Maybe not red so much as just kind of older, huskier. You know, that leathered fruit, the edge of fruit, the dried apple even. Yeah, maybe that. So I'm getting fruits, but they're all drying. I'm getting quite a bit of malt forward, a little bit of nut, some dryingness there, and then a little bit of spicing again. This time it feels a bit more like a youth spicing. I like the flavors on this one probably a little bit more than the Rosemont. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, I think that would be no surprise, right? The fine, simple, clean, light Canadian whiskey is exactly that. It's nice. I probably wouldn't reach for a bottle of it, even though it's pretty good. Whereas this has more interest to me. There's just a few more layers. There's a little more, even now as I talk, there's actually more spicing on it. Definitely more spicing coming from, I don't know, I said alcohol earlier. Now I think it's something coming out of the casking, but this perks my interest. It's still very malt forward and tastes like very young single malt, which is okay. But I just would put a caveat, like I appreciate that, but some would be like, this is like when you pick up that grain, you chew it for a while and it turns into prairie gum, that kind of grain. Anyways, thank you for joining me here this Sunday. There's a heat wave across Western Canada, so I hope you are near some water to jump in, or you have air conditioning, or for me, while I'm down in the basement because it's a whole lot cooler. Thanks again, Jesse at Dribs Drams, for sending these to me, and I hope you guys have a fantastic week.